Some British cars were so ambitious, so expensive, and so badly timed, they helped destroy the companies that built them. One had a V8, another introduced technology years ahead of its time, and one brilliant British car was so expensive to build that its own manufacturer simply couldn't survive. These aren't Britain's famous success stories. These are the 10 cars that pushed their makers toward financial disaster. And number 1 is the most tragic of them all. Let's begin.
Number 10. Daimler SP250. Our countdown begins with one of Britain's most unusual sports cars. The Daimler SP250, introduced in 1959, was designed to bring Daimler into the growing American sports car market. Its distinctive fiberglass body looked completely different from traditional Daimlers. Underneath was a 2.5-liter V8 engine producing around 140 horsepower. The SP250 was technically impressive and offered strong performance for its time. Buyers also appreciated its luxury touches and unusual character. But the car had problems. Early examples suffered from build quality issues, while the styling divided opinion. More importantly, sales were nowhere near what Daimler needed. The company eventually came under Jaguar's control in 1960, and production of the SP250 ended in 1964. The car itself wasn't responsible for Daimler's problems, but it became a symbol of just how difficult it was for smaller British manufacturers to compete. Today, the SP250 is remembered as a fascinating piece of Daimler history.
Number 9. Sunbeam Tiger. Next comes a British sports car with an American heart. The Sunbeam Tiger was created by Roots as a high-performance version of the Alpine. Instead of the Alpine's smaller engine, the Tiger received a Ford 4.3-liter V8. The result was a lightweight British roadster with surprisingly strong performance. The combination was clever. British handling and styling were combined with American V8 power. Buyers loved the idea. But the Tiger arrived during a difficult period for the Roots Group. The company was competing against increasingly strong rivals while dealing with huge development and production costs. The Tiger sold in relatively small numbers. Roots eventually faced severe financial difficulties and was taken over by Chrysler Europe in 1967. The Tiger didn't destroy Roots by itself, but it was another expensive project in a company that desperately needed successful mass-market products. Today, the Sunbeam Tiger is considered one of the most interesting British-American performance cars of the 1960s.
Number 8. Gordon-Keeble GT. Few cars on this list were as ambitious as the Gordon-Keeble GT. Introduced in 1964, it was designed to be a luxurious British Grand Tourer with Italian styling and American V8 power. The body was designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro. Underneath sat a Chevrolet 5.4-liter V8 engine. The combination was extraordinary. It offered serious performance while maintaining a sophisticated luxury car interior. The car even featured 4 seats, making it more practical than many exotic sports cars. But there was one enormous problem. The company behind it was tiny. Production costs were high, sales were limited, and the company struggled to secure enough money to continue production. Only a small number of Gordon-Keebles were produced before the company collapsed in 1965. The car was not a failure because it was poorly designed. It was a failure because the company simply couldn't afford to build it. Today, the Gordon-Keeble is one of Britain's most fascinating forgotten Grand Tourers.
Number 7. Jensen CV8. At number 7 is the Jensen CV8. Jensen Motors was a small British manufacturer based in West Bromwich. The CV8 was introduced in 1962 and represented Jensen's attempt to compete in the luxury grand touring market. It featured striking styling and a powerful Chrysler V8 engine. The car was fast, comfortable, and genuinely impressive. Inside, it offered a luxurious environment designed for long-distance cruising. The problem was that Jensen was still a relatively small company. Building sophisticated V8 Grand Tours was expensive. The CV8 required significant investment while competing against much larger manufacturers. Jensen continued developing increasingly ambitious cars, but financial pressure eventually became overwhelming. The company finally collapsed in the 1970s.
The CV8 didn't kill Jensen on its own, but it represented the kind of expensive, low-volume engineering that made survival extremely difficult. Today, the CV8 remains a rare reminder of Jensen's ambition.
Number 6. Austin-Healey Sprite. The Austin-Healey Sprite was very different from the expensive V8s on this list. It was small, affordable, and designed to bring sports car excitement to ordinary buyers. The Sprite became popular because it was simple and fun. Its lightweight body and small engine made it entertaining on Britain's narrow roads. But the larger story was happening behind the scenes. Austin-Healey was part of the British Motor Corporation, which was facing increasingly complicated competition and financial pressure. The sports car business itself could not solve the company's much larger problems. BMC was eventually forced into a major merger with Leyland Motors in 1968, creating British Leyland. The Sprite wasn't responsible for that collapse. In fact, it was one of the more successful British sports cars. But it demonstrates an important lesson from the decade. Even a popular car could not save a company whose overall business was becoming financially unsustainable.
Number 5. Hillman Imp. At number 5 is one of the most ambitious small cars Britain ever produced. The Hillman Imp was launched in 1963 by the Roots Group. It was designed to challenge the Mini with a completely different engineering approach. The Imp used a rear-mounted, all-aluminum engine and featured a compact body designed for city driving. Technically, it was extremely clever. Its lightweight construction gave it lively handling, while its rear engine layout created useful interior space. Many owners loved the Imp, but building it was another matter. Roots invested heavily in a brand new factory at Linwood in Scotland. Production problems and industrial difficulties affected the car's early years. Sales were also weaker than Roots had hoped. The company had spent enormous amounts of money developing the Imp and its production facilities. Eventually, Roots suffered severe financial problems and was taken over by Chrysler. The Imp didn't single-handedly destroy Roots, but it became one of the company's most famous expensive gambles.
Number 4. Jensen FF. The Jensen FF might be the most technically advanced car on this list. Introduced in 1966, it was based on the Jensen Interceptor, but featured technology that was years ahead of its time. The FF used four-wheel drive and a mechanical anti-lock braking system. Yes, a British luxury car was using these technologies decades before they became common. Power came from a Chrysler V8 engine. The car was fast, luxurious, and incredibly sophisticated. But sophisticated engineering came with a price. The FF was expensive to build and extremely expensive to buy. Only a small number were produced. For a company as small as Jensen, developing and manufacturing such a complicated car was a huge financial challenge. The FF demonstrated what British engineering could achieve, but it also demonstrated how dangerous ambitious technology could be for a small manufacturer. Jensen would continue for another decade before eventually collapsing. Today, the FF is regarded as one of the most remarkable British cars of the 1960s.
Number 3. AC428 Frua. At number 3 is one of Britain's most mysterious luxury cars. The AC428 was introduced in the mid-1960s as a high-performance Grand Tourer. Its body was designed by Italian coach builder Pietro Frua, giving it a sophisticated European appearance. Underneath was a Ford V8 engine, providing strong performance. The result was a rare combination of British engineering, Italian styling, and American power. It looked like an exotic European GT. But production was extremely limited. AC Cars was a small manufacturer and lacked the financial strength of larger competitors. The 428 was expensive to produce and difficult to sell in significant numbers. Eventually, AC struggled to remain competitive. The company would pass through multiple ownership changes over the following decades. The 428 didn't directly destroy AC Cars, but it represents the financial problem faced by many small British manufacturers. Brilliant engineering was not enough. You also needed enough buyers to pay for it.
Number 2. Aston Martin DB6. At number 2 is a car from one of Britain's most famous luxury manufacturers.
The Aston Martin DB6 arrived in 1965 as the successor to the legendary DB5. It offered beautiful styling, a powerful six-cylinder engine, and the luxurious craftsmanship Aston Martin was famous for. The DB6 was a magnificent grand tourer, but Aston Martin was still a tiny manufacturer compared with the giants of the international car industry. Each car required extensive hand finishing. Production costs were high. The company also had to invest heavily in new models while trying to expand its business. Despite the DB6's success, Aston Martin continued to experience financial difficulties. By the end of the decade, the company was in serious trouble and changed ownership. The DB6 didn't kill Aston Martin. Quite the opposite. It became one of the company's most famous cars. But the economics of producing beautiful, hand-built cars in tiny numbers showed why even prestigious British manufacturers struggled to survive. Number 1. Gordon-Keeble GT. And at number 1 is the ultimate example of a brilliant car that its company simply couldn't afford to build. The Gordon-Keeble GT was one of the most ambitious British luxury cars of the 1960s. It combined Italian styling, British engineering, American V8 power, and genuine four-seat practicality. On paper, it had everything. The car was fast, it was elegant, it was luxurious, and it offered performance that could compete with much more established Grand Tours. But the company behind it was tiny. Building a sophisticated luxury car required money, a lot of money, and Gordon-Keeble simply didn't have enough. Production costs remained high, while sales stayed extremely low. Only a small number of cars were produced before the company collapsed. The tragedy is that the car itself was never the real problem. The Gordon-Keeble was simply too ambitious for the resources available to its manufacturer. And that's what makes it such an important part of British automotive history. Sometimes a brilliant car can arrive at exactly the wrong company, at exactly the wrong time.
These cars prove that building a great car doesn't always mean building a successful company. Some were too expensive, some arrived at the wrong time, and others were simply too ambitious for the companies behind them. But which one do you think did the most damage? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through Britain's forgotten automotive history, hit like and subscribe, because there's another chapter of Britain's motoring past waiting for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.